are you all doing today? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Well, it's the second day of the week. I don't know. I love Tuesdays. I mean, usually after you've crossed Monday, it can't be so bad. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Nice. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
Well, I can't resist it this morning. Welcome to the most expensive state in Nigeria. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Today is July 18. I don't know what's making Bukola all giggly this morning about the fact that you live in the most expensive states in Nigeria. But it wasn't always like that. I mean, this is a fact
I wonder why I'm giggling myself because of the many realities attached to being the most expensive state. But go ahead, Ayo.
Well, yes, you know, even before June this year, the most expensive states to live in Nigeria were Ondo State, River State, and Kogi State. With inflation rates of 25.8%, 25.7%, and 25% respectively. But they, according to the NBS, recorded lower inflation rates last month, June, so benefiting from the trailing effect of higher inflation rates. Now, what is responsible for this, of course, is not something unknown to us all. The most major driver of this new reality in Lagos is the removal of fuel subsidies by the federal government, which led to a sharp rise in the price of petrol, and of course, naturally, as you very well know, in Lagos, many other things, you know, will rise with it. Before that, Lagos enjoyed relatively low prices compared to other parts of the country because of its proximity to the ports and the rest of it. Food prices had always been a major concern. Actually, has always been a real reason why, you know, we consider inflation figures altogether. But Lagos had always been expensive one way or the other. But to imagine that we had more expensive states in Nigeria before June, I bet some people didn't even know, you know, that these are realities. But, well, yes. So, again, to go with Bukola's words, welcome. This is the most expensive state in Nigeria, Lagos, as at June 2023. God knows what's going to happen tomorrow.
Well, I really don't know, Ayo, but I just saw another report warning, you know, another report by the Bank of America that Nigeria's headline inflation may hit 30% by the end of the year. Whoa. From 22.4%, that's it, for the month of May, if nothing significant is done to check the inflation rate. But, you know, little wonder that, you know, Lagos has become the most expensive city in the world, with the attendant...
In Nigeria, please underscore, very important.
Pardon me for running ahead of myself. You know, because of the many realities, accommodation, food, you know, owing to the fact that it goes through so many other cities, the form of transportation before it gets to Lagos, and then, you know, it becomes expensive. It's also a bit curious, you know, you would have thought that Abuja was the most expensive place to live in Nigeria, owing to the, you know, breakneck cost of accommodation in Abuja. But then again, I'm sure Abuja landlords can attest to the fact that food is quite cheap in Abuja. If you've visited a couple of times, you'll note the significant difference in the price of food compared to Lagos and indeed other parts of the country. But I also wonder if this will have a significant impact on other factors, you know, in Lagos, owing to the fact that, you know, many people see Lagos as that place of survival where you can earn at least 1,000 naira a day. But those menial jobs are beginning to reduce because of the ban on activities of, you know, motorcycle operators, you know, and then this might also increase you know, habitation of slum cities, slum dwellings in Lagos, and it may also have a significant impact on crime. So we have to look beyond, you know, the inflation rate, the numbers, and look at the socioeconomic realities.
Yeah. You know, well, just to put it in context, I mean, the NBS in that same report says the average inflation rate in Nigeria is 22.79, so not too far from, you know, the report that you referenced the other time. But those realities aren't any less real to so many people any day and every day of their lives. The question is, what is government going to do about it? Because going by these realities, the natural consequence is for crime to increase. So I hope it is something that government has factored in with all of the realities that people have to contend with on a daily basis. We do not want an increase in crime, but the realities are right there in the faces of people. So what is being done to ensure that though these realities are there, lives aren't getting any worse for people? Okay, Chamberlain.
Just Lagosians, eh? They want to wear it like a badge of honor. But the most expensive city to live in. Oh come on. You guys didn't always have it. You just read out, I think it was Ayo who read out just before the statistics came out, the three first most expensive cities to live in Nigeria. And Lagos was not one of them. I'm sure if you go there now, you most likely will still see Rivers hugging tightly to second place, never letting go. What should they do? Anyways, but yeah, very interesting statistics being showed us by the National Bureau of Statistics. And, you know, it doesn't also remove the fact that Lagosians are still buying petrol at 500 naira. That one I'll forever beef you for. So whilst you're still holding on to that badge, we have to ask what precisely has gone on in Lagos that hasn't happened anywhere else. Because right now is the rainy season and, you know, vegetables are becoming very scarce. If you can't get tomatoes to buy in Lagos, you also cannot get them to buy here. They're also precious, very precious commodity right here in the FCT. But speaking more seriously, and this was supposed to be a joke, by the way, you know, for Lagosians, and the fact that, you know, let's just say we like to make a show of everything. I mean, a call for show. I did not coin that particular term, did I? Anyways.
So this time, could it be inflation for sure? Too?
Inflation for sure in Lagos.
Oh, yeah.
But speaking more seriously, I think that it shouldn't come as any surprise. If we're looking at the most expensive cities to live in Nigeria, yes, indeed, I'll be surprised if Lagos wasn't there. Because you must understand that Lagos has very tiny portions of land, you know, and land is scarce commodity. The moment accommodation starts to go up, that's it, you know, everything else, because the way resources are allocated, food, shelter, and clothing, those are the three most basic necessities of life. And if accommodation falls under shelter, and we know that land resources are scarce for farming, scarce for shelter, you know, it's no surprise that Lagos is currently experiencing what it is experiencing. The question should be by how much? So what is the relative term in terms of, you know, how much it will cost to live in a place like Lagos and how much it will cost to live in a place, say, like Kebbi? And I'm just trying to use, you know, generic, I mean, states in that instance. Because we've seen that in recent times, the federal government with this palliative thing, even though it's not been spelled out very clearly, we now begin to see a number of states saying, no, you cannot give this state the most number, or you can't allocate to this state the most resources. We were still in a federal system whereby people still think that states should be treated equally, or perhaps, you know, according to size, not according to the amount of population that reside in that state or the needs of that particular state. And I think that as a federation, we need to do better by ourselves. We need to be fairer to how we distribute resources amongst ourselves. Lagos has always asked for special status as a former federal capital territory and as a state that keeps saying the, will I say, most number of graduates or most number of job seekers, you know, flocking almost on a daily basis towards it. That, look, our population rises far higher than, you know, the resources of the state can carry, and that the federal government will need to give it some special consideration. Now, whether that is going to come to reality, when it's going to happen, is unclear. But I think that the argument that Lagos makes is very vital, and I think it needs to be taken a second look at. But in terms of inflation, I think we also need to look at the space. What is the gap between Lagos and the next state? If it's, you know, really, really wide, I think that's something that should worry state government, not just state governments, but also the federal government, to see how it is that they can narrow that divide. All fingers will never be equal, and each state will deal with its own problems according to how, you know, according to how it sees fit and the resources at its disposal. But the gap between one state and the other shouldn't be so wide that it becomes almost impossible to eke a living in a particular state, or that the poor in a particular state are so vulnerable, are so poverty-stricken that they cannot, you know, make a living. So I think that those are the kinds of things that should worry the state governments, state government in particular. And interestingly, Lagos is one state that has tried to keep not just local government, but also create LCDAs. How effective have they been in ensuring that governance gets to the people? How effective have they been in ensuring that the cost of living is bearable to the ordinary people? Because that would be the case for creating more local governments. That would be the case for, you know, other states saying we want to copy this LCDA example, which Lagos has said. But yes, indeed, it's something that should worry us. If 1,000 naira would not buy for me in Abuja what it will buy for me in Lagos, indeed, I think that, you know, because that's exactly what it comes down to, and that's what inflation is all about. I think that is something that should worry governments indeed.
And that's what, you know, gets eyebrows raised when people see this. They thought, wait a minute, but if it's supposed to be the commercial capital, which it is, you expect a lot of things to be easily accessible. And, I mean, because, yes, compared to some other states, you can get quite a number of things you want with the persons there to deliver some of those goods and services. And so you'll expect that all of that will contribute to...
That's speaking firsthand right now.
Yeah, and not making it the most expensive city to live in, because you just wonder, wait a minute, how was that? Yes, the fuel is sold there at 488 official price, and here 537 an APC only, and then many of the others
540. Yeah,
and then some other states is 600, and so you thought since it was necessitated by the removal of fuel subsidy, I mean, they talk about the proximity of the port to Lagos, which leaves people wondering, so if some of the other ports have that capacity, if they berth there, whether it's a daughter vessel or whatever it is, you can access those, so who knows? But with that, that's why we keep saying, look, you can't play politics with data. Data is the lifeblood of planning. It just ensures that you get so many things right. And so when you see those, yes, you raise eyebrows, but it is what it is. Look, I'm not going to get into the argument saying, look, you can get out of data what you want. You can get the kind of data you want depending on your methodology. But the most important thing here is this is affecting families. And so we need to look real deep and find out, oh, wait a minute, what's going wrong? How do we address it? So those are the fundamentals that we need to focus on, because I know that taxation in Lagos is like, it holds you. It never lets you go. The way they tax, the way they go after things with everybody.
Everybody pays tax.
Oh, goodness. Maybe that's why. And now they're talking about the informal sector. Taxing the informal. I think they should think properly before they delve into all of those things, because already, remember, he that is down is fear no fall. So if they feel very hard done by and then they see 70 billion somewhere, but we'll get to all of those. In fact, take a look at the first paper that we're going to take you through this morning. It's Daily Trust, so they focus on a similar matter, inflation. Tough time for families as inflation soars to 7-year high. Wow. You know, during the former administration, most of the figures, we had, there were records almost everywhere in terms of what, be it inflation, be it all the figures, economic indices, they went south. A lot of them went south. And so you'd have thought that, is it from fuel? Would you ever believe that it wasn't so long in our history? The petrol was sold for what, 95 naira? It wasn't so long. So it's not a fairy tale. But now, it is what it is at the moment. Look at the riders. Food beyond reach. No. Citizens. I thought food is... okay. Kwara, Lagos, Kogi, worst hit Zamfara, Sokoto, Borno, least. Women begin strike in Taraba. You wonder why?
Indeed, I'm interested in why.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you listen to how the governor seems to be going about trying to address some of those challenges, it just tells you, look, this country, different states have got so many things to grapple with. And that's why, when I think it was Leke Alda who spoke about, if we look at our regions, refer to them as economic zones in the real sense of the word. And so that when states begin to hunker down and know that, look, we need to produce or perish, then all of these inflation figures, I tell you, will chip away at all of those, and you will see a lot of commerce in several other states, and we may not be talking about this 7-year high, which we are talking about at the moment. And then figures, not reflection of reality. Expert. So there you go. It raises concerns, of course, when they say this is not a reflection of reality, but if data is supposed to be reality, so how then is it that figures are not a reflection of reality? So that's a bone of contention. Perhaps several persons might want to delve into that and see what you come up with. But in the meantime, indication that we need to do way much more. I mean, this government talks about coming up with lofty policies, but look at the results for now. There you go.
Well, New Telegraph is the one I have here for you, and look at that. Leadership crisis. APC constitution doesn't support chair, national secretary's resignation. That's according to Banire. You also find here, says Tinubu has no hand in Adamu Omishori's ordeal as party announces their departure, postpones caucus, NEC meetings, why Southwest cabal ease them out. You might want to see the quote there. And Kekemeke tipped his national secretary. That story is also right there. So it was saying that the lobbying has begun. But New Telegraph, again, is a paper I'm looking at for you this morning. Look at this. So while we might be discussing inflation, it does appear that there is a glimmer of hope. OPS foresees glimpse of economic recovery. So right there, as looking at the inflation figures, it does appear that it might be the roughest part of the sea before the calm comes. Who knows? Look at it. As June inflation rises 0.38% to 22.79%. That's 22.8% effectively. That story is on page 3 of the paper. You also have a number of other stories there. H1 2023, Nigeria's non-oil export dropped by 0.9% to 1.5 trillion naira. That's also right there. Armed forces ready to battle insecurity, defend democracy. That's according to the CDS. And just in case you're wondering about this story, one which we had delved into during the wrap-up, yes, the valedictory session of the 9th National Assembly. Take a look at this. NAS tells court Bolkachua can't be arrested, probed. What? Yes, you heard right. Pages 5 and 29 is where you'll find details. We'll leave it there for New Telegraph.
Above the law or what?
And turn our attention to Daily Independent. It also leads with APC party politics. Adamu Omishore's exit brings APC leadership row to a head. Listen to the writers. Kyari named acting chairman, Fonta acting secretary. Party postpones NEC caucus meetings indefinitely. Adamu's sack linked to role in presidential primary. That's attributed to Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Sagi. There are quite a number of other stories under the big one. PDP raises the alarm over threat by APC to intimidate PEPC. Well, as they say in the law court, he who alleges must also prove. Well, we don't know how true that is unless PDP can provide more insight. Troops intercept truckload of ammunition heading to Onitsha. There was another interception somewhere in Agility, Ogun State, as well. So we hope that, that momentum will be sustained, clamping down on illegal importation of firearms. Ban on sit-at-home. Markets, banks, schools open as Mba monitors compliance in Enugu. That's pretty heartwarming, and we hope it will go around the rest of the southeast as well. And lastly, above the nameplate, fuel subsidy removal pushes inflation to 22.79%, highest in 17 years. There was a time that inflation was below double digit. Let's leave it there for Daily Independent.
Okay, but I'm still stuck with that story that Marquette took about Senator Bolkachua. But hey, the Guardian newspaper is next. And what do you have on its front page? Look at it. It's talking about 99% of something. Well, Nigeria spends over 99% of revenue to service debts as inflation bites harder. I mean, I'm just trying to imagine. So
that means there's nothing left.
You earn 30,000 naira per month, and you've taken loans throughout the month, and then you're use 29.
Yeah, 29,900.
29,000 naira. Let's just say 29,000 naira to service, not pay, to just the interests on the debts. Anyway. The story is on page 6 because I'm trying to wrap my head around that one and I'm finding it hard. Right under that picture as well, sit at home. Businesses, schools open in Enugu as Mba vows to seal locked buildings. This so gladdens my heart. The story is on page 29. Let's know what your impression is or what your experience was yesterday if you are somewhere in the southeast, Imo State, Anambra State, Ebonyi State, Enugu State. What was your experience, like going out to work or to your business yesterday, Monday, the 17th of July? It would be cheering to know these things. Fresh concerns of a cancerous sweetener in food and beverages. That story is on page 4. What does it mean to you? Find the details on the inside pages of the Guardian newspaper. That's the Guardian today.
Okay, take a look at Leadership newspaper next. APC begins search for new national chairman. Almakura Sani Musa, top list of possible choice. Gary is acting chairman. Again, party shifts NEC meeting says no plan to unleash EFCC on Adamu Omishore. So that unfolded yesterday after they had their NWC meeting where they then ratified or accepted, I should say, the resignation of some of the principal officers of the party. And then you've got this. But they also do have there on the front page for you, APC 5 national chairmen in 10 years. So you got to see Bisi Akonde, John Oyegun, Adam Soshomale, May Malabuni, and Abdullahi Adamu. So all of that here for you on the front page of Leadership newspaper. Look at this, guys, above this lead story. Kwara community introduces ID cards for visitors. Oh, dear. So definitely we'll get lots of people looking into this to see, okay, where is this headed? What's going on here? Wait. Okay. Several things come up with this one. And then, I know, and then FG confirms first case of anthrax disease in Niger. So, cause of concern, because if this escalates, you know how things can escalate real quick and fast. And this has got to do with some of those precious commodity, which is what? Cattle, and its derivatives. You know what can happen with that one. So we need to pay a lot of attention to that. Naseni tells lithium battery producers to set up plants in Nigeria. It's about time. And so, this is where ease of doing business will come in if they need to set up shop here. And so we need to ask ourselves previously, why is it that they were setting up a lot of shops in our neighboring countries and not here? And some of them set up not too far away from us. And then, of course, you know how it is. That means they were targeting our own market here. So we need to come up with those policies to ensure that we protect businesses here above all else. That's what happens in trade. you need to protect local businesses such that they will continue to be in business, because if they are not, you don't want to have a challenge on your hands either in state or at the government level or federal government level. So that's what idle hands can do if you don't engage them. And we have a lot of them. We're not short of them here in this country. So it's something that needs to happen. Reps seek Space Force to tackle cyber crimes. Yeah. Space Force to tackle cyber crime.
Sounds like you're shooting them to the moon.
So, and we do have a lot of talent in this country.
We do.
Several people can achieve so many things. All they just need is, when we talk about enabling environment, some of them include policies that will unleash those talents and not stifle them. You can't have government agencies competing with private sector as though they play in the same field. Those kind of things will be hugely discouraging, because sometimes, even though NNPCL say these days, look, we are now in business competing with the IOCs, and IOCs, on the other hand, say, wait a minute, you, to a large extent, the band of petrol, you fix it. You sole importer, even though they say it's changed, and several other questions. But now that they say other persons can import fuel, we'll see what happens with the IOCs. And why is it that have we, if we have, I'm not sure we've heard a lot of it, IOCs manning our refineries, giving them a target, fine, get these refineries working. So some even argue, take these billions of naira you want to spend on palliatives, fix the refineries, and it will largely impact positively on the cost of fuel. And if that does happen, you know several things are expected to tank. And Lagos might not have been the most expensive city to live in if we had done all of those. But there you go. That's leadership today.
Well, very many questions, Chamberlain, and very many ideas about how, fuel subsidy should be, or the palliative for fuel subsidy should be spent. So I think that there needs to be a very healthy debate, before government eventually decides to spend that money. But it also has to do it within a very short period, because don't forget that lives are involved here. This Nigeria is what we're looking at. Tinubu returns amid APC crisis as party shifts neck indefinitely. That's the lead story on the front page of This Nigeria. That's the lead story. Kyari Fuantua take charge as acting chairman, secretary. Why Adamu Omishore were asked to resign. So they didn't resign of their own accord, it would seem.
Pushed, huh?
Yeah, it didn't seem that they jumped of their own accord. The story is on page 4 of the... Any surprises? I mean, like, whoever jumps willingly from any of these types of offices. I don't know of any. Or maybe I have only heard of one.
Maybe not in this country, huh?
I think I've heard of one, and it didn't end very well. Take a look at this. NDDC, cash cow for politicians, says Wike Fubara. Port Harcourt Ring Road will connect our people. That's also there. Nigeria's food inflation under pressure as Russia suspends Ukrainian grains deal. So could this be part of why it is that our inflation rate just keeps going up? You might find details on page 19 of the paper. You have a number of other stories there, political stories. LP replies Tinubu, says fear of being removed unnecessary. The story is on page 12 of the paper. Sanu demands payment of 4-month salary arrears, also making the rounds on the front page of This Nigeria. Let's leave it there for the paper.
Well, the Nigerian Tribune is what I have next for you, and it tells a different story of the same headline from yesterday about the circumstances leading to the resignation of the APC national chairman, how Adamu lost out as APC chairman. The first of the writer says, his many sins. VP loyalist Kyari, now acting chairman. Deputy National Secretary replaces Omishore. That's the now outgone National Secretary. And special convention to hold soon. If you're interested on the backstory, you'll find them on page 16. Under that, there's this 2,300 ghost workers removed from payroll, 200 million naira saved. That's according to Abia State government. Well, will there be a backlash on this? Response from the State Labour Congress and opposition political parties. Well, we'll wonder how that will turn out, but it's bound to reverberate across the state. Ondo Council Vice Chairman dies a week after chairman's death.
That's a rather shocking one.
That's a rather shocking one. Sad one as well. And under that as well, at the bottom strip, Customs intercepts arms ammunition at Lagos Port. Troops impound truckload of ammunition going to Anambra. Wow. Police seize 13 million naira cannabis in Lagos. It's a page 29 read. Hope that yet again this momentum can be sustained.
Not just
Let's leave it there for Nigerian Tribune.
I believe that that particular one has to be seriously, interrogated. The same story is on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct this morning, right above the nameplate "War Against Smuggling." Customs intercepts container loaded with guns at seaport. There is enough documentation to point at one person or the other. But then look at the lead story of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. Fight against insecurity, Army most challenged component of armed forces. That's according to the Chief of Army Staff. Find the story on page 2. A service chief's rollout strategy to end insecurity. Let me also hope that they will do something with that customs intercepted container load of guns, because it is definitely very, very concerning.
I hope that it will be followed up, to the letter.
That's why I said, customs has more than enough importation documents that have passed through one point or the other. And if it is, according to the Nigerian Tribune, headed towards the southeast, a lot of questions should be asked along that line. 3 IOCs commence fuel importation into Nigeria. Find that story also on the Twitter handle of Channels Television this morning.
So will that bring down the cost of fuel?
Let me use Marquez's words. Big question.
And let me do a date check, as you always remind us, Ayo. Today's July 17.
Today is July 18.
July 18, rather.
See? Primary school.
Dangote promised us that the first deliverables will be in the month of July. So 13 more days to the end of July.
It's still July.
It's still July.
Calm down. Or to use that young boy's word, be calming down. And with the Nigerian News Direct this morning, we have come to the end of a look at what the papers are saying today. Oh, I understand that Chamberlain still has a paper or two. Chamberlain, go ahead.
We still have Vanguard here, so we might as well just go ahead with it. Weapons against insecurity. Service chiefs. Scrap service chiefs, yeah. So I know, it looked as though it was hanging too when I initially read it. Weapons against insecurity. Then you see ascribes to service chiefs. And then the writers, CDS, I'll prioritize troops' welfare, deepen interagency collaboration, make armed forces people-centric. And then you see Nigeria Army most misunderstood, says Chief of Army Staff. Recommends establishment of Defense Space Force to tackle cybercrime. So you see, that's where that came from, that Space Force thing. So now that you're talking about the Army being the most misunderstood, well, that may be the COS's perspective, but perhaps where they may need to start off, where you see make armed forces people-centric. So they're getting close to where the challenge is in terms of perception. So they need to connect the dots and find out, because there's several things that can happen, several. You just need to do a few things and you'll be shocked what the goodwill they will unlock amongst Nigerians who are not very difficult to please and govern and lead, in the manner of speaking. So that's here. So I guess They are strategists, strategy associated with military, so they should be able to figure all of that out and hunker down and get results out. And then you see deregulation. Marketers begin fuel importation, NMDPRA. So several questions. Naturally, we come through with this one, where they are talking about marketers, plural, beginning importation, which they've always clamored for. So we'll wait to hear from Ipman, Dapman, Petron, and I think they say even anyone who isn't among all of these ANDs can also go in and import as long as you meet the requirements, because they're supposed to be a standard requirement, all of those procedures to fulfill before you bring in products into this country. And if that is the case, are we not right to expect that the prices will tank? Or what? Or is this still subject to the vagaries?
Maybe not, but I wouldn't imagine that since the major impediment was the price, subsidy, as it were. Okay. I want to imagine that if that is the case, now that subsidy has been taken away, what's stopping all of these ANDs, this old Petron, whatever and they are, Ipman, from coming together and, putting up modular refineries? Wouldn't it be a lot cheaper for us to get, fuel from diesel to petrol to all the other components that make up our crude oil? A lot easier here. I know it would take time. It certainly will not happen overnight. But what would be wrong with that? Because if we've been told that, it's because the price has not been right, that's why it's been very difficult for people to bring in this product or for them to go into the production of it. Now that the price is looking about right, what is stopping them from saying, we're doing groundbreaking to, do these modular refineries? And
what about those modular refineries that are already in operation?
Yes.
What kind of impact are they having?
Are they having in their communities? So, very big question.
Even though some say that, look, a lot of the products that people use in the communities are actually from those modular refineries.
No, not the illegal ones.
No. Did I say illegal?
No. They're the legal modular refineries.
Yeah, they're legal modular refineries.
I do know that in some communities where, the illegal refineries, in quotes, are still operating, people get fuel to buy at a rather relatively,
even from those illegal refineries. Yeah. So that happens. So let's make no mistake about it. It does happen. Because if it doesn't, why do you think they're still in business? A lot of the time, you clamp down today, tomorrow they are back up. So there's a reason. So if there were no demand, there won't be supply. It's natural. It's basic. So,
but it's understandable why theirs will be cheaper. I mean, apart from the cost of security, which they have to pay, there is also the fact that they did not pay for the crude. So, and they're working in very crude conditions. So, that might explain why theirs will be a lot cheaper. And if you're doing something illegally, all you want is the baseline profit on top of it.
So there you go. That wraps it up with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. But we'll be back in a moment and just go right ahead and talk about this outbreak of anthrax disease, which the government has confirmed. So just give us a moment. We will do that for you. All right, welcome back. So we're talking about this case of anthrax in the country. Dr. Ifedayo Adetifa joins us. He's the DG of NCDC. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program here today. Now, the thing about this is...
Good morning.
Good morning. Whenever, we heard about how this went on in different parts of the world, and naturally heightened people's attention, say, oh, wait a minute, we better be careful, such that we don't face this better imagined than experienced. But now that this case came up in Niger, could you tell us, how do we describe it? Is it just that case? Is it an outbreak? How are you describing it, and what is it with this now?
All right, thank you. We are worried about any case of anthrax. So one case, as we have at the moment, is an outbreak, strictly speaking. So what happened is, in this case, our colleagues in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development received word of ill animals and dead animals, and went to investigate. And basically, within a 48-hour period, a diagnosis of anthrax was made, and immediate remedial action to ensure safe disposal of the animals and the products and the process of recalling meat products that were processed in that facility started. And of course, we were notified to look after the human health aspects, because this is a disease that crosses both the animal and human health divide, and therefore we are taking a One Health approach to the response.
So
back to you.
How do these, because I know that yourself and all the experts there would have asked similar questions in terms of the origin. How do these kind of things break in the first place? Is it just one animal? What's the magnitude of this?
Well, every disease often starts with one index case, as we call it. And sometimes you may know that case. Sometimes you may see other cases that are resulted from that case. In this context, this is the first animal we have diagnosed this condition. And of course, it is possible that there are other animals. As we warned in earlier advisory, there was significant movement of animals in preparation for our the last religious feast, the Ileya, as we call it, down south. And it is possible that infected animals from the parts of the region where anthrax has already been reported may have made their way also into the country, especially for animals that were brought in across the borders. So the advisory is for all animals around this farm and beyond that may have animals that are sick or that are died or that have been slaughtered and do not have, usually when you slaughter an animal, you expect the blood to clot. If you see that the blood is not clotting, then veterinary services are supposed to be notified immediately, because this is most likely a case of animal anthrax.
And the thing about this, Dr. Detifa, is that we know these animals, how they migrate. That's the nature of some of this. And so, I mean, as a scientist, you may not panic, but as other citizens, they may, of course, huge concern. So isn't it possible that, yes, you discovered this in Niger, that it might be in some other states yet to be discovered by yourselves and your team?
This is possible, just as it's possible for anything. I mean, the fact that you've caught one criminal or one robber at a certain instance doesn't mean that you have caught everybody who is committing a crime. So yes, if you're talking about theoretical possibility, yes, it is possible that there may be other cases that have not been notified, but we can only react to what we know. And we can, as part of the response to this, sensitize people to increase their threshold for reporting should they see animals that are behaving or look suspicious, so that veterinary public services can step in, make a diagnosis where it's necessary, and then we can link the human health actions to that once we have confirmation of animal disease, as we are doing now. So what we can do now is what we've said, work with Niger State public health authorities to make sure we get a detailed list of contacts of these animals in Niger State to start with a view of placing them on preventive treatment so that they don't come down with anthrax.
But the herders that many people know, and you speak about increasing their thresholds for reporting. Good. But are you optimistic in that regard? Because the herders that many people know, we don't bother about reporting these things. They just want to herd the cows, kill, sell, move on to the next one, repeat. And sometimes you wonder, even if there was any of such case and people kill and then people buy, how do you even know as a consumer if you're going to get into that market?
I think to an extent that may be an unfair generalization. Herders actually care about their animals, and sometimes maybe are even accused of caring more than of their animals more than themselves. And you have to remember that this disease, if will kill animals, will affect the livelihood of herders or people who own or manage livestock. So the economic losses are significant, and people who look after animals tend to report or seek help when their animals start to die. And indeed, anthrax can wipe out your entire herd if you do not take action. So I'm not sure I agree entirely with you. I think, yes, if you're thinking about theoretical possibility, herders may be in far remote places when things start to happen before they can report or seek help. Yeah, but once they do that, veterinary services are equipped with vaccines, animal vaccines, to help begin ring vaccination to prevent other animals from dying.
Well, maybe it didn't come out well, but I didn't say they don't care about the animals. I said the herders that many people know may not have that capacity to report to vets when they see some of these things. They may care, but that reporting, if they do that, if it were in order, reporting the threshold might have not been a thing. So I'm just thinking, the herders that many people know may not be able to access your facility to report this kind of cases. So that's what I meant by that, not that they don't care about their flock.
Yeah, but herders won't be reporting to NCDC. They will be reporting to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, or depending on what, in states, some states have ministries of livestock. And there is a connection between people in animal husbandry and veterinary services, typically in most states, in ways that the rest of us probably don't fully understand. But as I said, it's an economic issue for people who look after animals. And once animals start to die, often people start to try and find out why and report. So it may not even be the herders. It's what we hope to achieve, especially with speaking to the media and other efforts of sensitization, is if people, anywhere people see acutely ill animals or animals dying, please notify animal and human health authorities. If you only have access to human health authorities, please report, because we can also reach out to our animal health colleagues to let them know, sensitize them to what reports we have received and get them to intervene. It's important. If the only thing Nigerians take away from this outing this morning is that when you see something, please report it. And we're talking now about sick animals. If you see dead animals, even in the wild, that it doesn't look like anybody has killed, but they are dead, please notify animal and human health authorities immediately. Do not handle the animals. Do not touch them. Notify human and animal health authorities immediately. Back to you.
A very worrisome, will I say, discovery right now, Dr. Adetifor. I'm trying to wrap my head around, anthrax. We know that was some biological weapon that was developed. How do you think that it could have gotten here so soon and out of the blues?
I'm sorry, that's also not correct. Anthrax actually exists in nature. This bacteria has the ability to exist in forms that make it very resistant to climatic or other extreme conditions, and can survive in the soil for decades. So anthrax, the bacteria that causes anthrax, is naturally occurring, and typically they are brought to the surface when people dig or interfere with the soil, or when animals are feeding or grazing. They ingest the spores or inhale the spores this bacteria and can get infected. Okay, it is in recognition of the naturally occurring bacteria that, yes, there have been, unfortunately, efforts to weaponize it and use it in bioterrorism attacks, but it's not. So that's the way things have gone. It's not that it was developed as a bioweapon and then started to spread. No, anthrax actually occurs in nature. Back to you.
Very interesting. So right now, I mean, if it occurs, I mean, as you said, I'm not going to say if it does occur in nature, but it hasn't occurred within our own natural environment. If this is the first case that the NCDC or even the vets reported, and it's been reported to the NCDC, then we have to ask precisely, well, you say it could have come from across the border. So it's not native. It's not a bacteria that is native to Nigeria. Am I correct on that?
No, you are not. There is anthrax, as I say, in the environment. The difference in other places where anthrax occurs infrequently, including Nigeria, because it's not that we've not had cases. We've not had cases for decades, but anthrax has happened in Nigeria. And the typical nature of outbreaks when they occur is associated with the movement of animals that may be infected themselves. In the case of this farm in Niger State, there is a history in the timeline of introduction of new animals into the farm, following which existing animals following the interaction, existing animals then appear to have come down with the infection and died. And we know that there is anthrax already in the sub-region. We already issued advisories. There were cases of anthrax already reported in northern Ghana, in parts of Togo as well. And we know that the livestock markets, as already touched on by a colleague, herders move across the sub-region. And when there are festivals or occasions that cause increase in demand for livestock, then you can get mass importation of animals from bordering states, which then, if infected, can introduce anthrax into a population of animals that are susceptible. Anthrax is prevented in animals by vaccination. There's an effective vaccination. So in other places where there are high levels of vaccinated animals, then there are also fewer cases of anthrax.
Is this something that occurs seasonally? Is this something that we should expect? I mean, we know that there are diseases that come up on a seasonal basis. There'll be time when, you know, certain diseases just, you know, happen. For instance, meningitis. Those are diseases we know happen in human beings. I don't know if meningitis occurs in animals as well. We know that, you know, the weather can affect that. Is anthrax, as you say that we've had anthrax, even though a lot of the papers I have seen this morning say Nigeria records first case of anthrax. You say that we've seen anthrax before in Nigeria. So how frequent would we say that this outbreak occurs? And shall we say, how long will it last for? You know, before, will it disappear by itself? Will it just run its circle, and that will be that? What precisely do you think will happen for us to get us to a point where we're no longer afraid of it?
Many questions, but all useful. So anthrax is not seasonal. As I say, it's naturally occurring, and what you need is for the right ingredients to be present for you to have cases. You need a susceptible animal to be exposed to anthrax spores that may be present in the soil around where it is feeding, or you need importation of an infected animal into a pool that then mixes with a pool of other susceptible animals, and then you have transmission. The course of events is determined by the response. So one, the ability to detect the cases when they occur so that you can mount effective veterinary and human public health interventions. In this case, surveillance, animal health surveillance picked up and made a diagnosis of anthrax within 48 hours of notification of animals dying, which is good. Dead animals have been safely disposed. Meat products already available on that farm have been safely disposed. Meat products that may have left the farm are being targeted for recall. There is ring vaccination of animals in the environs of this farm to make sure that you avoid any inadvertent spread. And for the human health side, all contacts are being tracked with a view of giving them preventive treatment to prevent any human cases from ensuing. Now, if all of those are effective or work well according to plan, then we are better placed to bring this outbreak under control. It is important to take into cognizance what your colleague said earlier. So we are, of course, alerting people well beyond Niger State and sensitizing healthcare workers to look out for whether it's human cases or animal cases, with a view again to make sure that making sure that they are identified quickly and the necessary interventions are brought to bear to prevent spread and to prevent further spread and to, of course, prevent human transmission where it is possible.
Doctor, I wanted to, your agency about 3 weeks ago validated a statement from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development warning Nigerians about the likelihood of anthrax. About that same time, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development warned Nigerians against consuming cow hides, popularly known as momo, smoked meat, bush meat, as preventive measures from contracting this anthrax that we're talking about now. How strongly would you say people should be cautious of this? Because it would seem like every time such a message is pushed out, and this particular one has been on for quite a while, a number of people are wondering whether or not there aren't certain sinister moves by government. So exactly how vulnerable are we? And in terms of prevention, what are the things that people should look out for? What are the things that people should avoid? Does it really include momo?
Yes, important question, and I love momo like most people. So what we are saying is, do not eat sick animals at all. Okay, sick animals contain anthrax, or animals that have died from anthrax contain anthrax. And consumption of any of their products, anthrax is present in their skin, is present in their hair, is present in the meat. So consumption of any of these products, even the people who work on with hides and skin, who are not even working on skin for purpose of consumption, are at risk of anthrax if that skin came from a dead animal. So at this point in time, where we have a confirmed case, we are just saying, look out for the meat that you buy. If you like bushmeat, maybe this is a time to take a break from bushmeat if you did not catch it yourself. Because what we don't want is people tend to pick up either animals that are near dying or have died freshly with a view of still selling them on for consumption. And similarly for livestock, whether they are, even if they are killed in abattoirs and all of that, is we are asking that animals be properly inspected. People who own animals should not take sick animals for slaughter. And if animals are slaughtered, it is noticed that their blood isn't clotting and there's bloating more than usual, or the meat starts to deteriorate pretty quickly. This is likely to be the carcass of an anthrax-infected animal and should not be sold for consumption. So that warning is valid, and it's particularly valid now that we have confirmation of anthrax in the country.
And Dr. Adetifa, my question is directly related to your last point about slaughter slabs. how much of coordination does the agency have with state infectious diseases officers to the extent that they can go to, the main status labs in states across the Federation to administer the vaccine, to prevent a further spread? And also, in relation to that, if you recall the nature of other infectious diseases, i.e. COVID, is there a threat of transference, from animals to humans if, there is inevitable interaction between them, particularly during slaughter and buying and selling?
Well, starting with the latter part of your question, that's what we have said. Anthrax is both a disease, or the bacteria that causes anthrax can infect both animals and humans. It's primarily an animal disease, but yes, for humans who are exposed to sick animals, for humans who consume meat from sick animals, they are also at risk of catching anthrax. So it's a zoonotic illness, and zoonotic illnesses, by definition, are those that are primarily found in animals but are capable of infecting humans as well. So anthrax meets all of those definitions, and it's a zoonotic illness, just like COVID, actually, because COVID might have started in animals, or the virus was found in animals, but yes, it's also then spread to humans. So again, other zoonotic illnesses are like Lassa fever, monkeypox, and the like. The abattoirs and the meat sector are, of course, under the regulation of state ministries of agriculture and rural development, or livestock as they may be called, and they have full access to abattoirs, and indeed are meant to regulate abattoirs within states. And of course, these authorities, including the veterinary public health officers or veterinary services in respective states now, are being notified by our colleagues in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to be on alert and to look out, including sensitizing the public and meat workers about the likelihood of anthrax.
Well, Doc, this one last one for now on this issue. The Senate, a few days ago, suggested that your agency and the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, along with the Ministry of Health, should urgently embark on a nationwide vaccination of livestock against this anthrax spore. How do you respond to that? Is this something being considered by the NCDC and others?
Again, we like, the idea that the NCDC is always mentioned as being responsible for everything. I know that this represents or reflects the trust of authorities and the public in the agency. It's important to highlight that we don't look after animals. The animal sector is under the jurisdiction of our colleagues in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, and specifically under the veterinary and pest control services. There are vaccines to protect animals present in the country, I think even produced by the National Veterinary Research Institute. At the moment, the strategy, because you have to deal with response to the situation we have on hand, the strategy is to conduct ring vaccination around suspected or confirmed cases. Vaccines are always available, and indeed, people who have animal farms, who look after animals, are meant to liaise with their local public health vets to arrange for vaccination program for their animals. Similar to really what, if you own a dog, you have a dog as a pet, you're supposed to have your vets around, whether public or private, for example, to give your pets the necessary vaccine. So the vaccines have always been available. And perhaps we will now see an increased uptake now that there's been confirmation of anthrax in the country. The rest of mass vaccination campaign in terms of responding to this outbreak will depend on where the outbreak goes, because it is a major endeavor or major efforts to try and just vaccinate all livestock in and around the country as well to start off with. So the more important thing at the moment is to respond to what is going on and, of course, encourage animal owners to make use of available public health veterinary services to make arrangements for routine immunization of their livestock.
Well, Dr. Fede-Adetifa, with this suggestion, let's just hope that the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, along with the Ministry of Health, and perhaps whichever other agency of government would take this perhaps in consideration so as to forestall what you and others are concerned about, this high risk of spread. Dr. Fede-Adetifa, DG NCDC, thank you so much for your time and for all you do.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. We're back after now. Do stay with us.
The Duchess International Hospital opened its doors in October 2021. The mission of the hospital is to reverse medical tourism. We take particular care here at the Duchess to bring together a combination of the brightest and the best locally, as well as Nigerians in the diaspora who are interested in returning to do very good work for the benefit of our patients here in this country.
The good thing is that we had all international expertise here, all international facilities here, international people working here. Everything is coming together in a space which was considered not great in terms of the availability of healthcare.
Axis Bank, of course, has been able to provide us with a robust range of products and services that has enabled us to deliver that standard and quality of healthcare that is integral to our mission as an organization.
It was a calm atmosphere at the headquarters of the All Progressives Congress in Abuja. Members of the party's National Committee converged for their meeting, which took place behind closed doors.
It won't take 30 minutes now.
The All Progressives Congress, since inception in 2013, has had 5 chairmen, 2 of them Mr. Bisi Akonde and Mr. May Malabuni in interim capacity. Of the 3 that were duly elected between 2014 and 2023, only Mr. Oyegun Odigie completed 1 tenure, as former Governor Adams Oshomole and Senator Abdullahi Adamu had their tenures truncated. After the meeting, which lasted almost 4 hours behind closed doors, the Deputy National Chairman North announces the outcome of the meeting.
NWC wishes to inform you the resignation of the National Chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, CON, and that of the National Secretary, Senator Yola Omishore, CON. And with this development, and according to the Constitution of the All Progressive Congress, APC, it is now incumbent on my humble self, Senator Utekari, as the Deputy National Chairman, North, to assume the office of the Acting National Chairman of the All Progressive Congress, APC.
The Acting National Chairman makes further announcements about its National Executive Committee meeting.
The proposed National Caucus meeting for Tuesday, the 18th, July 2023, and the National Executive Committee meeting of the All Progressive Congress slated for Wednesday, 19th July 2023, has hereby been postponed.
17 members of the National Working Committee were in attendance as the National Publicity Secretary, Mr. Felix Moka, and the National Women Leader, Mrs. Betty Edu, were excused after due permission.
right, so those two gentlemen join us this morning to shed light on what transpired or what is going on within their party. Ismail Ahmed is a former national youth leader and a member of the Board of Trustees of the APC. We also do have Lanre Isel Nilu, who is a former Deputy Director of Communications and Strategy for the APC and the former National Publicity Secretary of the same party. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, yes, it came to a head in a manner of speaking yesterday after so much speculation about what was going to happen to the position of the national chairman. Even though there are several reasons behind the scene as to why himself, the secretary, what happened yesterday occurred, but perhaps you could just give us a background. Why did this happen? What happened? What's the reason?
Well, I'll let him go first.
Okay,
I'll let him go first.
It's a political party. And in any association, there will be need at any point in time to do what you consider the best for the environment. The environment that we have now in terms of political and governance environment with new president in place, you have to ensure that the party that is the engine to drive governance along with the executive is in tune with the way the government wants to go. And I think it is just part of preparing the ground. The president said that we hit the ground running, and all other systems must also comply with that situation. So I think the good thing that has happened here is the structure is being, taken care of in a way that is not creating any crisis. But this is actually a resolution of crisis, not a crisis in itself.
So what was the crisis?
Yeah, the crisis had to do with the fact that you had a political party that has not provided the kind of leadership that tallies with what the reality that we have now in terms of how the government wants to move on. You can't drive a train wagon with a Toyota engine, so I think that is just the reality here.
So what is it that he was expected to do that he didn't do?
It's not about what he was expected to do that he didn't do. It's about the party at any point in time has, may have a reason to say, let's rejig our system. Let's get things sorted out this way. And I also know that negotiation anywhere in the world is one of the basic instruments of association. So political party, part of the instruments you use to resolve conflict, because party is about interest, agenda setting, and canvassing.
So could it be simply put, he didn't have the interest, or the president didn't think he had his own interests covered?
I have not mentioned the president. The president is not involved. He's not a member of NWC.
He's the leader of the party now, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, but he's not a member of NWC.
Does he have to be a member?
Yeah, he had to be. He had to be to participate in the decision to say, I'm resigning or I'm not resigning. And I think this are done voluntarily by these two people, and we should commend them for, taking this action in a way that now has brought peace and stability to the party. And then the government can focus on the most important thing, that is delivering on the mandate.
Is this what you had expected in terms of this change?
What do you mean, what am I expecting?
Was it what you had expected?
Yes,
alongside some
I think to be honest, I think I was here on Channels TV, I think about 11 months ago. And I said that's way before the election, the general elections, after the primaries. And I said I had expected the national chairman to resign, honestly. Ogalanre, they are the older people, so I'm sure their tone is a bit more conciliatory. I believe that he never should have stayed a day longer after the primaries. I think I'm glad that he voluntarily resigned, and I'm glad that the national secretary also voluntarily resigned. And I think any other person that had a hand or has a hand in whatever it is that has transpired should also toe that path in that regard. I expected the chairman to resign sooner. I'm glad that he finally did. I think the party requires leadership. The president yearns for it. The members of the party yearn for it. And I think this is, like you said, it's a resolution that we all welcome. It's something that we're looking forward to. But most importantly, going forward, we expect the political party now to be an actual political party, not just a vehicle for running for elections. Because we have, personally, I will tell you this, you know, after the convention that threw up some of these leaders of the party, you know, there were a lot of party members that said, hey, we don't recognize these people. You know, where were they 5 years ago? Where were they 6 years ago? Where were they in 2015? You know, because what party members were actually looking for were people who understood the philosophy and the principle of the progressive mantra and the progressive movement. They didn't see that at the top echelon of the party. But of course, they are experienced people. They have been around for quite a while. So, you know, we give them all the support we could. But, you know, things have come to a head. We have a new president who wants to move in a certain direction. We have members of the party who are energized, who are, you know, mobilized within themselves that they want to see their party move in a certain direction. And I'm glad the president and the chairman and the secretary voluntarily stepped out of that.
It's an interesting thing. You've said that, you know, as far back as 11 months ago, you had already called for the resignation of the national chairman of the party. And some people say that, you know, the very fact that he announced a different choice than the person, other than the person who eventually emerged as the flag bearer of the APC, already put his position in trouble. I do not know if that's the incident you were referring to, because some people will say, oh, it was a slippery slope from then on when Ahmed Lawan was announced as the party's preferred candidate for the presidential slot of the All Progressives Congress. Is that when his troubles began, or it began way before that time?
I don't know about troubles. I don't know the trouble with who you're talking about. But I would, the kind of party chairman that I was looking for, you know, heading to that convention, was a party chairman that had tact, wisdom, humility, because a political party is an elite organization. It's not an aluta organization. It's not a command and control, because you're dealing with a lot of people who are elected, who have the mandate of the people. You know, yes, the political party is the vehicle where you do that. But I think it was, of course, even with my few years in politics and my few years in life in general, I wouldn't head an organization where I'm supposed to be an umpire to decide between certain contestants freely and then make a choice or even announce a choice, you know, of a particular candidate before we get into the field. I wouldn't do that, you know. So I don't know about troubles, whether that's where his trouble began. I don't know if there was any trouble that began somewhere or anything. All I'm saying is that there were a lot of people, even before that announcement, that were saying that, like, oh, wait a minute, you know, where were these people in 2015 and 2014?
If as 11 months ago, shortly after the...
I told you I have had issues with the fact that I thought that a lot of things were not handled. It was not just basically about the presidential primaries. Okay. It was a lot of other things.
So if from that time, you know, people like yourself were already calling for his resignation, wasn't that trouble already?
No. First of all, like, for example, I think the excuse I gave before I came in was the fact that we had a president and vice presidential candidate at that time that were both Muslims. And I thought that the national chairman, as the leader of the party, and I remember that interview was with you, should have excused himself for a Christian North Central candidate to emerge. That was my thought as at that time 11 months ago. I remember that. I remember that was exactly what I told you. I said that was part of my reasons. And then there were so many other reasons so many other people have. What I'm saying is that all that now has come to pass. The chairman has resigned voluntarily, and I think it's an honorable path for him to take. The national secretary have resigned voluntarily. I think it's an honorable path. The party now has an incredible opportunity for reform.
But some tell us that the national secretary was actually, I think they said it was around yesterday to see what was going on, if the fillers were in his favor. And previously, he had denied that any such allegation or any such thought as to them resigning or there was fire in the mountain in the party was all a farce. And so he got inside the environment. He had to just beat a retreat, and that they did not voluntarily resign. They were pushed.
I don't know about that. I'm not a member of NWC. All I know is that they resigned, and they are not denying that. So as I'm concerned, it's voluntary.
But Mr. Onindo, there's talk about whether or not the laws accommodate this in your party in terms of the provisions, and that, well, no clear provisions in terms of resignation. And so will people raise concerns about all of those things moving forward?
What are you talking about, the law? What exactly?
Are there provisions that accommodate, because, I mean...
Resignation.
Resignation for
even the law of
officers.
nature accommodates resignation. It's an inalienable right of an individual to decide, I'm done, I want to go. Anywhere you are, including political party.
Are there specific provisions that will accommodate that in your constitution?
I don't know. I don't have the constitution here, and I don't have everything offhand. But I can tell you, you don't need that in the constitution to say, I'm done. There is nowhere in the world they force you to remain on a position you say, I'm not.
Yeah, I think the question is what should happen. I mean, anyone can decide to do whatever it is that they do, but exactly. The thing is, what should happen? What does your party say should happen in the event that this happens?
Nothing needs to happen when you decide to resign. Resignation is resignation. All you need to do is to put in a letter. There could be negotiation, if they really want you to stay, or even if they wanted you to go, it's part of conflict resolution. It's an instrument for conflict resolution to say, we think for the interest of the party and the government and the country, we need a new person, on the saddle. So you could negotiate that.
You heard Mr. Muiz Banere yesterday. I don't know if you, I don't know. I'm assuming that you heard him, but he says there are no express provisions within your party's constitution.
Yeah, and I'm saying nobody needs express provision to decide to resign, no matter what precipitated that. You don't need express provision in the party. You cannot deny a man his right to say, I am done, I want to go.
Yes, but the thing is, what should happen in the event that happens? I mean,
yeah, what should happen is actually in our constitution.
Okay.
When the chairman is no longer on seat, by whatever reason, is no longer there, the law says that the deputy national chairman from his region, we have two deputy national chairmen. We have for South, we have for North. So you have a chairman from the North. The deputy national chairman from the North actually is the deputy national chairman 1. So it takes over in acting capacity when the chairman vacates his seat. That is what our constitution expressly states.
Okay, so I'm a little, you haven't quite weighed in on the controversy. You were part of an NWC2 that also suffered a bit of controversy. Did you see already the banana peels lying in wait for this particular NWC, particularly the chairman and the national secretary?
Yeah, we will see the signs have always been there. Just like Ismail said, you've had a series of missteps. And also you could see that the leadership of the party was not configured, to work with the kind of person that we have as president. It's coming with huge capacity. And then you need a party that can, will that, for him, so that he can deliver on his mandate.
What were some of the missteps?
Yeah, he mentioned one. The chairman of the party is supposed not to be partitioned within the party. You don't have people that are seeking for the ticket and you clearly come out to say, I'm supporting this one. I recall September, I think last week of September, that was the week the INEC timetable permitted campaign to commence. And there was a letter that was in circulation, though unsigned, but from him, purportedly from him. It has not been denied up to now, saying that the presidential candidate was not consulting with the party. If such thing happened, what you expect a chairman to do, you have access to the presidential candidate. You see that nobody would know anything like that happened. You iron it out, and then everything continued. But the first thing we saw was in the public. And you would also recall that when even before the presidential primaries, and when Asiwaju was in Ogun State, in Abeokuta, and he made some statement regarding his position at Emilokon when the Emilokon slogan came out. And the chairman came out to say things like he would be disciplined, exactly. And he repeated that also when Asiwaju, also in Abeokuta, mentioned the fact that mobilizing the voters to say, yes, Naira redesign has brought hardship to everybody. and fuel scarcity has brought hardship to everybody. But even with this, please rally and ensure on the day of election, if you need to trek and deliver, and we are going to win this election. And the party chairman came out and said he will be disciplined. And you see, how was there before? Party takes the bullet for government because at the end of the day, that is the structure from where everybody comes out. And you needed to have a leadership of the National Assembly in place immediately after the election and the inauguration of the new government. All the party needs to do was to sit down with the president and take direction. How you deliver that to ensure that the majority we have in the National Assembly is to our advantage, and we produce the kind of leadership. Because you have to look at the global picture. You have a president, you know the capacity this president is bringing, a man with such critical strategic thinking skills. So you need also to have the leadership of the National Assembly with that level of capacity. You need that also for the party, so that everything can work together to bail out this country from whatever we have. But you saw the way the leadership of the party vacated, the space and exposing the president to having to appear to be participating in that. That shouldn't have happened.
Okay.
And so now when even the leadership came on board, and they elected or had in place the other members of the leadership.
Officers, yeah.
And then the only avenue the chairman had to express his misgiving was public avenue, to say whatever they did was in vain. That shouldn't happen. And I guess that's what he was referring to.
If I could ask you, Ismail, I mean, we've heard and read the former chairman say concerning that announcement, look, he had the direction or the word of the president to do what he did. That he's not a foolish man to have just woke up one day and just go and do that. So that's what he claimed at a point. And then about when he said the current president will be disciplined during the time of campaign. Now, could it be, because the way party works, I mean, you lot can speak about that, you're in the party, could it be that he wasn't speaking alone? He wasn't speaking just about what he only thinks, that there might be several other people who think the same way. And if he made those statements at the time and about the president being disciplined or will be disciplined, if it was not right, why didn't the then president at the time counter him and say, nope, I'm the leader of the party, you are in the wrong at this time?
I think, first of all, I cannot speak for, the former president and on why certain things were done or not done. But I do know for a fact that the president released a statement. The former president released a statement afterward to say that he has no candidate. I think that was absolutely open. He said he had not picked any candidate and that he had not supported any candidate or endorsed any candidate, as against what the national chairman has at that time said. But that's not even the issue. The issue is, let's even assume without conceding. I'm not conceding the fact that the president told him that this is my candidate. But let's even assume that that is the case, that the president called him in and said, this is my candidate, and I want Chamberlain to be nominated, or I have endorsed Chamberlain. If the president tells you that in confidence, as a political operative, as a national chairman of the party, the way you go about it, that's where the tact and the experience and the knowledge of politics comes in. You don't gather people and say, this is the candidate, as if you are in primary school and you are a class monitor or a head boy. You don't do that in an elite organization. That is why I mentioned the issue of an elite organization. Party chairmen, both at national and state level, need to understand what they are dealing with. That a political party is not where they are most of them are former governors, and they think it's a command and control structure. They sit down and everybody's their cabinet member, they have appointed them. No. NWC members and NEC members were elected just like you were, with the same number of delegates that probably you were elected. Some of them probably got more votes than you did. Everybody representing a certain constituency. They were elected. They were not appointed by you. You don't run it the way you like. That's not how you do political parties. And people in the Executive and National Assembly were elected by the constituencies. Yes, they may have run the flag of the party, but the party is not owned by you. You don't run the party. And even the way, even the constitution of the party, the way it gives so much powers to chairman chairman does this, is at the behest of the chairman, he assigns this to this, he assigns... We need to understand that a political party, like I said, is an elite organization. It needs to be dealt with and governed, not ruled, governed in a particular way. You know, so even if the president had told the national chairman, this is what I want, the national chairman, it is incumbent upon the national chairman to make sure that he finds ways, you know, first of all, to advise the president, you know, on what is best for the party under the prevailing circumstances. And if that fails, he needs to know how to go about it. Not to come on TV and say, this is what we have endorsed, and we're going to discipline the other person.
Did the former president counter him when he said the President Tinubu now will be disciplined at the time?
I don't know about that, you know, because I don't know whether the president has counted him maybe privately. Maybe he is not willing to go to the public and do that immediately. I don't know what has happened after that. But I know that statement of the national chairman, as at that time, was a mistake.
You said something just before we go to Lagos. You said something, Ismail, about after the convention of the party, which produced the leadership of the party at the time, and as the leadership of Alhaji Adamu, that you didn't recognize the leadership of the party. How do you think that leadership could have come about? And this question is for you, Mr. Larry Issa-Olido. That is, if you do agree with Ismail that the leadership of the party at the time when it emerged was quite strange. Do you agree with that?
Well, I wouldn't use the word strange, and I'm sure he didn't use that word strange. No. You see, just as he said, you need to emphasize the kind of...
Just a moment. He said he didn't recognize. And this is...
I said a lot of members did not recognize these people 8 years ago, and because they were not our party members. And it's true. It's public knowledge.
So if he didn't use the word strange, I'm just trying to use a synonym to... If you don't recognize something, it's strange, right?
Yeah, well, in that case, I think what he's saying is, you know, this party started 2013, and there's a history to it.
Exactly.
And when you just come on board some 3 years, 4, 5 years ago, you may not understand, you know, some of the issues, you know, that we need to protect as far as the party is concerned. So that strangeness may have come from that, that can these people really, you know, continue what we started in the way that we emphasized? So I think that's what that was all about.
All right, let's go to Lagos.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Let me begin with you, Mr. Ahmed. I mean, you've spoken about a number of things, and one thing that you said actually caught my interest, which is when you made a reference to the states, you know, that they were elected the same way the national chairman was elected at that level. And, you know, there are also pundits saying that the former national chairman of your party, who inherited a lot of crisis, deep internal crisis across all states of the federation, couldn't resolve the issues in the states, and that is one of the things that gave him a number of troubles. There are those who would point to the conduct of congresses at ward, local, and state levels in a number of states all across the nation. How significant is that to the build-up to the resignation that we are discussing?
Well, I want to be very clear about something. I have not seen the resignation letter of the former national chairman, so I don't know what is contained on why he resigned from his own perspective. But I do know that some of the allegations that went out, you know, clearly stipulated some of these issues that you raised. That because prior to him becoming the national chairman, you know, during the caretaker committee, he was appointed as the chairman of the reconciliation committee that was set up by the caretaker committee, and he went around the country, you know, to especially the trouble spots where we had problems in the states. So I think him being the national chairman was supposed to be a continuation of that effort, you know, to see how those things were resolved. No one is expecting him to have a magic wand for the current NWC to have a magic wand to clear all the problems in the states. Some of these things are deeply complicated and interwoven. It's not something that you can do in one fell swoop. or in even a lifespan of a particular NWC administration. But I think that a lot of people were also miffed with the way that the leadership of the party did not take so many of these things very seriously and bring down their experience and the authority that they have to be able to solve some of the solvable problems that people thought were solvable problems. In some cases, a lot of people even thought that they created some problems in certain states. So I don't know if it contributed to his resignation, but I do know it's one of the so many things that a lot of people have with this issue. But let me be very clear about something. There will be no leadership of the party that everybody in the party will be happy with. There probably will never be that. There will be no utopian leadership that everybody would be happy with. But I think there will be a certain level, if you have a chairman that has tact and the humility and the honesty, most importantly, the understanding of the principle of the party and the progressive mantra and the discipline to walk it through, then you may be able to find some certain level of leadership that will be acceptable and will be commended by a lot of people. But certainly there will never be a time when everyone who is in the party, both the leaders and the led, would be happy with a particular style of leadership, because it's a contest. A political party is a room of a lot of contest. So for whichever decision one takes, the person who does not get the decision in his or her favor will probably interpret it in a particular way. So there would be people who would be unhappy. But like I said, ultimately, these resignations were voluntary as far as we're concerned. I don't know what Chamberlain is saying, whether or not somebody was pushed. I'm not aware of that. All I know is that these things are voluntary and we are happy about it. Now it's an opportunity, but our joy would be complete if we actually utilize this opportunity to actually reform the party and make it focused. And like Mr. Larry said, the party, it's supposed to be the political engine room of the government in power. And then so that the government now can focus on governance, and then the political party can do with party. But the political party has to be an institution,
yes,
not just a vehicle for running for elections.
But how significantly that will play would probably depend, again, and quite strongly too, on how significantly the party plays at the state level. So let me ask you, Mr. Isaonilu, given the crisis that's been reported all across almost all the states, APC, in almost every state in the country, one wonders then if the crisis is as widespread all over the nation, such that somebody will come from the National Secretariat and say, okay, we are the ones that are supposed to do this, and then another person will come and say, no, it's the states that's supposed to do it. I think it was it River State or one of the states that we had such a significant challenge that they had issues, dealing with and all of that. So if the crisis in a political party such as the APC is so widespread across the states, can we then say that there is no interest in the National Secretariat beyond the party chairman himself that could have staved all of this or even made it worse for whoever is the chairman of your party?
Let me first clarify that the word crisis. Immediately you mentioned that I combed around the country to see where exactly there is crisis. I know of conflict. In politics, just as Ismail said, political party is about conflict and conflict resolution. It's about people trying to establish their interest above the interest of another group. And that contestation is what makes a political party. And that's what politics is all about. So nothing that I can see in any state has graduated to crisis from conflict. We need to establish the difference. And conflict is positive for party. That means you are having a lot of debate, you are having a lot of agenda, and you are having a lot of contestation. And at the end of the day, you have the mechanism to resolve peacefully and get the best result. So, not crisis per se. But I would also agree with you.
I mean, without taking away anything from what you just said now, if the parties are for certain specific interests of national consequence, and you say that the contests have to go on and all of that, and it degenerates to the point that there is no consensus between the federal level of the party, the national level of the party, and the state level of the party, is that just a contest, or it is a crisis? Because one would expect that at least the leadership will be taking...
It also showed the need for leadership. Are you still talking?
Go ahead, please.
Can I go ahead now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, what that also shows is that there is an issue with the leadership. And if there was no such issue, there won't be need for this resignation. And the reform Ismail is calling for is actually the need for that is so that we can have a party that is able to coordinate all the structures down to the ward level in a way that we are truly representing what we stand out to do as progressive party. Our political worldview is progressive. And anywhere you have anything contrary to that, there will be issue. And you may have conflict graduating to crisis. And to avert that is the action that has been taken now. So we all are hoping that we will do the right thing to ensure that we bring in the right kind of leadership to ensure that all the structures from zone to state to local government to ward are well taken care of and mobilized, to focus on what is most important to Nigerians. And that is how to deliver the renewed hope agenda, mandate of the president,
Mr. Onilu, it would seem like that crisis is not alien to the All Progressives Congress. Everywhere you turn in party politics in Nigeria, for other political parties as well, you find one form of state leadership crisis or the other, either it's PDP or the Labour Party. So for the All Progressives Congress, I'm wondering what's alarming in this case, particularly when you consider that the national chairman of the party worked vigorously with the current president, across states of the federation, campaigning for him, and which, we all saw the outcome in the victory of the party. So it would seem as if because he didn't support the candidacy of the current president, that his fate was sealed. And when you consider, the events after the victory of the president, his absence at the class of 99 governors who visited the president, you would consider that his fate was sealed. I think I prefer Mr. Ahmed to answer this one. So was his capital offense just not supporting, the current president's, candidacy at the primary level? Mr. Ahmed, this is for you.
Oh, okay. So thank you. I think I've answered that earlier by saying that I don't know, it could be so many reasons, but I've given a couple of few of them. And it's not an offense, so to speak. This man has resigned voluntarily. He was not sacked, as far as we're concerned. We are here just alluding to why we thought that he probably could have been persuaded by his colleagues in NWC to resign. I don't know why he resigned. I haven't seen the letter of his resignation. But I'm speaking from my own point of view. And now my point of view is the fact that he should have resigned earlier than this. Not only because of his stance, probably say pre-primaries or during primaries, but because leadership. I want us to understand the concept of leadership. And I keep saying this, and I'll keep repeating it, of a political party as a very unique elite organization. And why it is very important that the leadership of the political party, deploys a lot of skill set to be able to be successful. We have been lucky in APC that we've had 2 successive presidents that were elected One based on raw popularity, Muhammadu Buhari in 2015, widely popular. The other because he's popular and because he has invested in the democratic space for quite a long time, and in people like myself, Mr. Onilu, and so many other people who truly we proudly call ourselves the President Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's proteges, because he has invested. So we have won largely because of our presidential candidates, you know, not necessarily because of the leadership of the party have done any wonderful things or have been able to systematically navigate the murky ways of politics. But now we need to now bring back the party to be able to stand on its own and win elections once we field candidates who are capable of winning election. The most important thing is the institution of the political party itself and how it's able to navigate through issues.
All right, gentlemen, we have to thank both of you for coming on. Lanre Issa Onilu, former Deputy Director, Communications Strategy for the APC, is also former National Publicity Secretary, as well as Ismail Ahmed, former National Youth Leader and a member of the BOT. I think one thing they might remember is you said a couple of times, political party is a unique elite organization.
It is.
So, food for thought, in case you're wondering. So, thank you both for coming on this morning, and all the best.
Thank you.
So, we will be back in a moment. Stay on with us. The president of Civil Liberties Organization, Ihu Akera, joins us this morning. Good morning. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, good morning.
Well, what we're talking about is what a lot of people have seen, and they may have glossed over it or, you know, moved on from it, or some may not have. It is, let's see if we can take a look at that visual now. Former governors paid a visit to the president, and it all appeared harmless, but CLO, you here, perhaps thinks otherwise. So what is it that you have about this visit?
Well, a lot, and I'm sure many Nigerians have a lot to worry about the visit by, quote-unquote, non-de-guerre, the class of 99, who visited President Tinubu. When the visuals hit Nigerians, for us in the CLO, we became very concerned, particularly looking at some of the faces, the figures. Former governor of Delta State, James Ibori, who himself is an ex-convict, jailed in the UK for 13 years. He did 4 years, and then he returned to Nigeria after, of course, he left jail. And of course, former governor of Edo State, who was addressing the media there, Lucky Benedio, he himself fleeced his state, Edo State, of billions of naira, and he utilized the plea bargain option, and he escaped jail. And just a couple of them, very many of them there. And what they told Nigerians in that meeting was that, Tinubu was one of them in 1999. They were all governors, and they ruled Nigeria for...
Which is a fact?
It's a fact. But what we have in the CLO is that those same set of governors set the template for the gradual destruction, looting, pillaging of the Nigerian Federation, to the extent that successive governments found it difficult, even though they themselves also engaged in looting and stealing of our public patrimony, it became difficult to bounce back. So for CLO, we are very concerned that people like James Ibori, who should be hiding their faces, people like James Igbenedion, who should be cooling off somewhere, Saminu Turaki, and very many of them, including even a major player in the APC now, the former governor of Abia State, Ojuzo Kalu. You know, at some point, he was even in Kuje prison. So these are the individuals who banded together to say they are a class of 99. We feel in the CLO that this is an insult on the integrity of Nigerians, with what Nigerians are passing through.
For some of those names you mentioned, now, for James Ibori's case in UK, Claire, from some of the other names you mentioned, they were in the courts in Nigeria, and the courts quashed that trial for Senator OUK. And then you mentioned the former governor of Edo State. You said he utilized the plea bargain, rightly so, which validates or probably invalidates whatever transpired, and then he's free. So is it that you don't have, or one, if former governor of Delta State was not in that meeting, and then these other persons were there who have gone through our courts here and the courts did whatever they did, would you have had an issue?
We will still have a lot of issues. Yes, why not sitting down here this morning to completely condemn the entire judicial system in Nigeria? We have a few judges and justices who have risen above board in the discharge of their duty. But we all know that when Ibori came before the courts, with about over 100 charges leveled against him by the FCC, he was discharged and acquitted, set free, until he went to Dubai and the Interpol went after him and got him. And when he got to the UK, they presented the same facts before him and he pleaded guilty and he went to jail. So the Nigerian judicial system is not one that anybody can trust, hook, line, and sinker to say, oh, whatever that is happening, that's what we can rely on. If they are clearing Ojus Okalu, clearing Saminu Turaki, and all of those hordes of people, Nigerians know who got us where we are. We know it. We know who got us where we are. So it's not about the courts saying this is the issue. We also know how the courts got people like Ahmed Lawan and Akpabio and all of that. They didn't do. So you see, I don't want to sit down here this morning to denigrate the court, but Nigerians know what is happening.
Some people say that, you know, you've looked at the flip side. I mean, a couple of individuals who have, you know, cases or who have answered or have had to answer cases against them. What about those who haven't had? What about those who, some will say, actually tried to set a template for their state, a positive
who were also
template,
in that meeting?
Who were also in that meeting.
Yeah,
shall we throw the baby out of the bathwater?
Former governors, there are some of them, as I said earlier at the beginning of this, people like Donald Duke, right? A couple of them did well in their states. That's why I said that we are trying to separate the wheat from the chaff. There are a number of them who are good, but majority of them pillage their states. That's why Nigeria is where it is today. Go, just travel across the states, you find that there's no development anywhere. The roads are bad, infrastructure is near zero. Not in Delta State, where I come from, really. Ibori, you of course went to jail for stealing, not allegedly, not because of course he was convicted for stealing $78.5 million at that time. You know what that can do to Delta State with a population of just less than 8 million or thereabouts. So for us, we are very concerned in the CLO that we cannot allow this to continue. People cannot regroup in the presidential villa. This morning we are addressing a press conference to take on these issues, to take on these individuals frontally. They cannot regroup in the presidential villa to determine the fate of Nigerians.
Politics is a mix of the good, the bad, and the ugly. We've seen ex-militants go to the villa and they have been granted amnesty. We've seen bandits being, you know, pardon has been muted for them. But I think the key question I asked you about, you know, some of these people still having good ideas. Shall we throw away the baby with the bathwater because they have been found guilty by courts?
If you have been found guilty, what does the law say? You just recluse yourself for some time. Stay out.
Even after they've served their time?
You serve your time, and there are better people out there. We don't want ex-convict coming to, if you keep your ideas to yourself. For us in the CLO, that is our mindset. Nigeria is, we have a population of more than 200 million Nigerians. Very good people out there, brilliant people, people who are good in ICT, good in every sector of the economy. For anybody who has been indicted, whether you have repented or not, please just excuse us. Nigerians are going through a lot. We cannot have people regrouping in the villa. And President Tinubu has to be very, very careful. Because for us in the CLO, we are back. He said he's back to rebuild Nigeria. He's back to rebuild ECOWAS. For us in CLO, we are back to put them in check.
Okay, everyone seems to be coming back to where they were. So 11 o'clock today, right? That is the time for the conference. Yes, all right, so we'll look out for that and get more details for you all on that conference. Ihio Akeraga, President, Civil Liberties Organization. Well, we are back to taking your mails as well. And so we've got this one from Law Alpha, who says the recurring internal crisis in the ruling party, which led to the strange resignation of their chairman and secretary, lends credence that it is difficult to manage a very big family. This may work against the party in the presidential election tribunal.
Well, Festus Akimboyewa says the way the APC swiftly ditched their chairman is a confirmation that tensions have been bubbling up in the party, albeit beneath the surface. The ruling party must resolve all the tensions to avoid splitting into factions, which could make the party ungovernable.
Well, Professor Imonoka Inakena chooses to talk about the anthrax outbreak, and he says anthrax investigation, vaccinations, and possible outbreaks and treatment must be taken seriously by the citizenry. All government health agencies and disease prevention centers must work together to curtail further possible upsurge, to abridge any possible mistakes and other mitigating measures under control while we yet can to yield a comprehensive solution now that is possible.
Aki Adegbenro didn't ignore our first take this morning during the chat, cost of living in Nigeria. I don't know where the NBS got the data from, he says, but Abuja is more expensive than Lagos. Maokwe, take note. Lagos is the food bus stop in Nigeria because people from all over the country dump food in Lagos, thereby making it cheaper than even Abuja. Accommodation is cheaper in Lagos than Abuja, same as transport. So,
well, the jury's out on that one.
Well, I'm not even the MBC. I'm not even going to contest anything. So you can take the fight anywhere you want. That's the show today. We're back tomorrow. I'm Ayo Makede. Have a wonderful day.
Enjoy the rest of your day. I am Bukola Koka.
I think it's important to state that these figures change. I mean, it's not a fixed thing. Today, I mean, for a period, for a quarter, it might be more expensive in Lagos. In another place, it might be more expensive in that place. So the figures are changing. That's for Mr. Adegbenro. But indeed, Lagos, wear your badge of honor, the most expensive city to live in. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, the more things change and remain the same, still apply eventually. Who knows? I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.